Congressman Issa, good to talk to you again.
Well, good to be back on, and thank you for covering so many important issues for your listeners.
Well, the vote's in, and the Attorney General has been held in contempt, but you had several of the Democrats yesterday calling this a sad day.
Absolutely. It is a sad day when a seated head of law enforcement for our entire land refuses to comply with something he would never tolerate someone not complying with a shoe on the other foot. And as you know, the shoe's on the foot every day. Justice Department seeks and receives thousands of subpoenas every day, and U.S. attorneys around the country go right to court and put people in jail if they don't comply with subpoenas.
What do you say, though, to those people who say this is just a symbolic vote because it's going to go, the criminal contempt charge anyway, goes right to the U.S. attorney in D.C., his boss is Holder?
Well, I'm hoping that the U.S. attorney will recognize that his obligation to the statute and to the Constitution trump very much his obligation as a political appointee. Remember, this is the U.S. attorney who's also looking into leaks from this administration, and the administration wants us to believe that he can be non-partial and fair as he looks into leaks that clearly came from inside people in and around the White House.
But do you really expect, we're hearing from legal experts who say, their prediction he's going to do nothing.
He may very well do nothing, and that will be a shame and a smear on his record. In our case, yesterday, in a second vote, the House gave authority for us to hire a counsel to represent my committee's interest before a federal judge in order to get a federal judge to further order the Attorney General to comply. Now, Judy, remember, they may thumb their nose at the court. This administration has a tendency to consider that there's only one branch of government and they run it.
Are you expecting, though, when you talk about the civil contempt, that other subpoenas will be issued?
We will continue to issue other subpoenas in other areas. There's no question, though, that this Attorney General made it clear that he wasn't complying, he wasn't cooperating, and he wasn't going to. So we'll, as I said on the House floor yesterday, we will begin looking for ways we can get discovery around a Justice Department that is committing an injustice.
But, you had, again, the Democrats, several of them say, that you wouldn't call the former head of the ATF, Ken Melson, to publicly testify, or Attorney General McCasey from the Bush administration.
What's amazing is that when we call people, they call it a show trial. When we don't call people, then I guess they call it what? The absence of a show trial? Kenneth Melson gave testimony under penalty of criminal prosecution before the committee, Republicans and Democrats. His testimony led us to many of the documents we're requesting and being denied by the administration. Kenneth Melson's perfectly willing to come back before the committee, and he may. Former Attorney General McCasey has given testimony to the Inspector General investigating things around ATF, and he's perfectly willing to come before our committee. But again, it didn't happen. What we were looking into yesterday didn't happen on either of their watches. It happened when the Attorney General and his political appointees caused us to be lied to and then covered it up for 10 months.
Yeah, but again, they were pointing how there's really no evidence about that. There's no evidence showing the AG lied to Congress. There's no evidence that the president knew about this. But what about this February 4th?
But that's not what the contempt was. The contempt was a February 4th letter which was false. Their representative, Ron Weish, coming before our committee and giving additional assurances that they never let guns walk, which was false. And then when we said, now that we know it's false, how did that, 10 months later, we just wanted to know who knew and when did they know it, and they've given us zero. So, again, yesterday was an important vote because except for 17 Democrats who knew that we had a right to this information and voted their conscience, all the Democrats either walked out or voted no on what was ultimately a narrow question. Congress was lied to undeniably. 10 months later, they admitted they lied to us, and now they won't give us any documents about who lied to us and who covered it up for 10 months.
And you mentioned the walkout, Nancy Pelosi among them. What does that say to this Terry family? We're not going to tell you what you want to know. We're not going to let you know the truth about how your son was killed?
To a great extent, that's what the Terry family took from it. They put out a very touching communication letter yesterday that was to very much that, and they were very saddened by somebody who they thought would have been their hero, John Dingell, who did just the opposite. He towed the party line, completely ignoring the family. As a matter of fact, claiming to represent them while never even returning their calls.
And you mentioned the Democrats breaking ranks on both charges. And you've got people saying, "Oh, that's because of the NRA." But what message does that send to this administration? Is this an attempt to distance themselves from an administration that American people say they can't trust anymore?
Perhaps it is. The fact, though, is that when I look at the Democrats who voted, I'm very proud. A number of them didn't vote because of the NRA, didn't vote for any reason except conscience, and they came out early on and told me how they were voting. It was long before the NRA scored some of them. But I'm also concerned that people who say they support protection of the Second Amendment, how could they vote no on wanting to know about this clear attack on the Second Amendment?
Yeah, and that's what NRA's Wayne LaPierre was saying to us yesterday. The only thing worse for this Attorney General than this contempt vote is the fact his contempt for the Second Amendment, that it's no secret that he has.
There's no secret he has it, that he views the Constitution as his prerogative rather than the people's right.
Did you see the Fortune article, Congressman?
I did, and it was an amazing document with absolutely no attachment to the truth.
Absolutely. I mean, they got claims in there. The ATF never walk guns. We're talking about this was written by a former Clinton campaign staffer.
Well, I guess you can say anything and find some piece of print media to put it out there. But let's remember, this is a piece of political activity going on in Fortune magazine that flies in the face of even the admissions by top people, including Eric Holder. Eric Holder admits they let guns walk. He says, well, the previous administration did it too as his defense, but he does admit that they let guns walk. He clearly admits that the February 4th letter was in fact false, and that's why it was retracted. He stopped short of taking any personal responsibility, but that's not uncommon in this administration or, for that matter, in politics.
How soon do you think this will move forward?
We believe that the president has already instructed the U.S. attorney not to comply. We believe that he won't, but we're sending a letter outlining why he should. In the meantime, as soon as we have a confirmation, which could be in a week or less, we will hire counsel.
And Congressman, here you have an administration saying to the American people, we're not accountable to you. When you look at November, this is a president who has already said the Constitution gets in his way. How important do you see November after what you've dealt with for 18 months as far as where we go in the future of America under 4 more years of this administration?
I don't think there's any question that an election should first be about the Constitution, then should be about our pocketbooks. This election is about both. This president has been bad on foreign policy. He's been bad on economic policy. But most importantly, he's shown no willingness to live under the Constitution, but rather he chooses to have the Constitution and the American people live under him.
18 months. Did you ever think it was going to come to this?
This is one of the longest investigations we've ever had on our committee. It is one of the least productive from cooperation with the administration. Well, in fact, we've had more whistleblowers and more cooperation from people who care in and around America, including many people who have risked their jobs here in Washington to provide us information. So there's a bright side. So many people care enough to come forward. There's a dark side. This administration is transparent only in that it is transparently obvious they don't intend to cooperate.
And you can only hope, I'm sure, as this moves forward, you'll have more whistleblowers who say, I saw what happened, I saw the vote, I got to speak out.
Exactly. We expect to have more whistleblowers, more people offering us cooperation, and I commend these people. I was asked just the other day in the Rules Committee as to the wiretaps that were given to us, which we've retained under seal. We haven't disclosed them, but they were given to us, and one of the Republicans said, well, can you tell us who gave them to us? And I looked at him and said, no, I cannot, and no, I will not. We will never disclose our whistleblowers because because we've already seen in this administration retaliation against Dotson and other whistleblowers. So we will continue to protect the secrecy of our whistleblowers because it's essential that they not pay a price for doing the right thing.
And they're already paying a price, no doubt about it. When you talk about the wiretaps, though, you look at them, you read them. You've read them, I'm sure, whatever you've had access to. Any doubt that this went high up within the DOJ?
No doubt at all. As a matter of fact, in the record yesterday that I placed on during speech and debate on the floor, I have letters that are now part of the congressional record where I wrote to Congressman Cummings so that when he read those letters and the wiretap applications, he would clearly understand how they showed the gun walking. He received the letters. He said he read them. He said he read the wiretaps. He just simply stands there in denial that they say what they obviously say. So I would tell your listeners, they can go online in the next couple of days. They can see those letters. They can read for themselves. They've been carefully redacted so that the letters don't disclose specific individuals. But every single word was taken from the wiretap applications. It makes it very clear that they knew guns had already gone to certain people, and they'd gone to Mexico. They'd been discovered, and they were killing people in Mexico. Well, they continued selling to those exact same straw buyers.
And that's the tragedy of it all, because we have an AG who has admitted there are going to be more people who are going to pay with their lives.
Absolutely.
You know, and you mentioned Congressman Cummings. You know, he said, I promise, I won't rest till we get the truth. And then it all turns on racism and voter suppression. Is that what this is about? Or whatever happened? I mean, the Terry family hears that. I can only imagine what they're thinking.
I lead the committee, and I'm honored to lead the committee. I will take Ranking Member Cummings, maybe kicking and screaming, but I will take him to that conclusion he promised to reach. Our committee will not give up until we meet the obligation to the Terry family and, candidly, to everyone in law enforcement who either risk their lives with these guns out there or who, in fact, their reputation has been damaged by agency being allowed to let guns walk, something that law enforcement officials up and down, everyone in blue you can name, knows was wrong.